Sometimes you are accustomed to speak English. I spoke Arabic the whole day today. I'll convert to English now for 2 minutes. Our session now will be 2-tier, and the 2 tiers are moderated by Dr. Ibrahim Abdul Jalil. I won't introduce him again. He was well introduced in the morning. The first part of the session, Dr. Abdul Jalil will be moderator with 2 panelists. He will introduce them. The subject of the session is renewable energy and energy efficiency. موضوع الجلسة هيدي اللي عم ديرها الدكتور إبراهيم عبد الجليل هو الطاقة المتجددة وكفاءة الطاقة. ومع الدكتور عبد الجليل متحدثان.
Hello, good afternoon. It's me again. I'm not talking much this afternoon. We have 2 eminent panelists, Mrs. Ibro Tichektiut. She is the Marketing Director of GE, is that right?
Chief Marketing Officer for the MENA region.
Okay, Chief Marketing Officer of the MENA and Turkey region of GE. And Mr. Pierre Khouri, he is the Director of the Lebanese Center for Energy Efficiency and Renewable, right? Yeah. I have only a few slides to highlight some of the energy aspect of the report. And then I will leave it to our panelists to discuss it and to reflect on the report and their respective subjects. This is the growth of energy in the Arab region since 1980s till now. It has been like this. It has been that the GDP, the primary energy consumption is almost higher than the growth in population and GDP. Since 1980 up till now, the growth of energy consumption is higher than that of GDP and population. Per capita income is almost driven by per capita energy consumption has been always driven by per capita income. And we can see it clearly, the per capita energy consumption in the rich countries of GCC, like Qatar, Bahrain, UAE, and others, are much higher than those of the rest of the Arab states. Talking about the energy consumption pattern, it is clear that it is dominated by oil and gas since the early 80s up till now, with a little shift to using more natural gas than oil during the recent years. On the sector contribution of energy consumption, we can see that residential and commercial sector are the major consumer of electricity in the Arab region. So building is very important issue if we are gonna improve energy efficiency at the regional level. On the energy consumption pattern, we can see that transportation consumes about 1/3 of the total energy consumption in the region. I will defer pricing issues till later, and here is the energy efficiency of the Arab region expressed as the energy intensity. Energy intensity is defined as the amount of energy consumed to produce 1 unit of output or 1 unit of GDP. And we can see that the Arab region is much higher. It's almost double the world average. So we are consuming double the amount of energy to produce the same output. This is reflecting a very low efficiency, actually. Here is the energy intensity again between different countries, and we can see that the average in the Arab country are much higher than the world average, and most of the Arab countries, their energy intensity has increased rather than decreased during the last 10 years. On the issue of renewable energy, we can see that wind energy is dominating right now. About 80% of the current installed capacity of renewable energy comes from wind. Here is some highlights of the renewable energy policies in the region, and it is in the very early stages of development. We can see that, for example, feed-in tariff for renewable energy has been implemented only in 5 countries. That's all for now, and I'll leave it to our panelists to reflect on this. I'll start with Ms. Ibro.
All right, thank you very much. So I'd like to start by extending my thanks to the event organizers for organizing such a great event on such an important topic. It's always great to be back in the beautiful city of Beirut. So very happy to be here. So I thought I'd start by setting the stage with a quick overview of some high-level facts. So firstly, the Middle East region is no longer just a major energy supplier, but also a substantial demand hub. And what I will present here ties very well to Dr. Abdel Jalil just presented. He talked about energy intensity as a measure of how much energy is used to generate a given amount of output or GDP. It's a measure of economic competitiveness, and the Middle East has a lot of potential to actually improve its energy intensity levels because it is far above the world average. So the need to reduce energy intensity for economic competitiveness, welfare, and sustainability, especially in light of a rising population, is very critical for our region. And energy efficiency comes into play here because it has a critical impact in driving energy intensity down. Implementing energy efficiency has several challenges, for sure, 2 of which are, number 1, low fuel, electricity, and water pricing can be a barrier to implementing it. And 2, it would take time to implement energy efficiency because some structural and behavioral change is required. So that's where renewable energy comes into play, in that through execution of renewable energy, through diversifying of power generation with renewable energy, can help make faster impact when it comes to reducing energy intensity. It doesn't mean that energy efficiency is not important or one is more important than the other. I think both go hand in hand in making real impact in our region. So in order to have a good game plan to execute energy efficiency, it's important to understand the framework around it. And in simple terms, we talk about how efficiently energy is generated, number 1. Number 2, how efficiently energy is transmitted and distributed. And number 3, how efficiently it is consumed. So today I won't spend time on the middle section, the T&D section here, but talk mostly about the generation side and the consumption side. So on the generation side, generation efficiency is about minimizing the amount of fuel that you use to generate a given output of power. And this can be accomplished through use of state-of-the-art technology, efficient power generation technologies across various types of power generation. And secondly, diversifying into renewable energy to minimize use of fossil fuels. On the consumption side, there are various groups of consumers, so industrial and commercial being a big one, transportation a second one, and the residential and individual or consumer level being a third one. And across the board, as we look at this framework, we see some low-hanging fruit, and it's important to go after the low-hanging fruit to be able to make some fast progress in accomplishing energy efficiency. So a simple way of actually defining what the low-hanging fruit would be to look at how energy is consumed. So the chart here shows, on the left side, shows the share of energy consumption by consumer groups in the Middle East. Mr. Abdel Jalil also alluded to it. So we see three key big groups of consumers of energy: the industry/commercial, the transportation sector, and the residential applications. And the solution here would be to adopt a targeted approach to different user segments. So if we would go through that on the industry and commercial side, adaptation of more efficient technologies is critical, along with having regulations and an energy management framework to execute on targets. New building codes for energy efficiency, energy efficient buildings, as well as energy audits and incentives would be critical. On the transportation side, incentives or investments around public transportation and also promoting public transportation within the public would be very impactful, as well as limitations on fuel subsidies to optimize the number of vehicles running in the region. On the residential side, it all starts with educating consumers and creating public awareness, as well as regulations for more efficient consumer products such as appliances or energy efficient LED lighting products, etc. At a higher level, at a national or a regional level, making energy efficiency a reality requires a targeted and integrated approach. And so it all starts with having a policy framework, having some energy planning, i.e. a strategic plan and an action plan to execute on energy efficiency, as well as tax and customs benefits, financial incentives, regulatory framework. So parallel to that, it's also important to have institutional capability or institutional capacity. What that means is having dedicated organizations and agencies that are responsible for energy efficiency, that are responsible for executing it and monitoring it, so energy efficiency can become a reality. And as that structure is established, it's also important to have a good energy pricing mechanism where subsidies are optimized to promote energy efficiency, and also there is a time-based or demand-based electricity pricing structure to actually, again, motivate energy efficiency. On the utility side, we briefly talked about generation. In today's context, percentage of renewables in the energy mix is critical in achieving the vision here. So I wanted to take a minute to talk about our experience as General Electric company. As most of you probably know, GE is an infrastructure company. It's a digital industrial company present in several infrastructure segments. So you will recall the energy efficiency framework that I presented earlier. So generation efficiency, T&D efficiency, and efficiency in consumption. And coincidentally, all of the GE businesses tie to a certain element of this energy efficiency framework. So just to give you a few examples here, our power and water business, in our power and water business, we have technologies and solutions in various types of power generation: gas, coal, wind, solar. And also on the water side, we offer wastewater reuse and water desalination technologies in our portfolio of equipment. On top of that, we have software solutions and industrial internet solutions. Our latest software is called Predix. So Predix is like is an operating system for the industrial world. It's like Microsoft Windows for a wind turbine or an aircraft engine, just to explain it in simple terms. So these two solutions offer tremendous energy efficiency and operational efficiencies that also add to the top line and bottom line of our customers, whether they're government customers or private sector participants or consumers. So on the consumption side, we have a very significant oil and gas business, a healthcare business, aviation, transportation, and lighting. Let's pick lighting as an example here. That's a business that directly touches the consumer. In our lighting business, we have a huge portfolio of energy-efficient LED lighting products, both indoors and outdoors, for street lighting. And we're very active in our region to help governments and consumers drive energy efficiency with the use of technology. So just a few examples there. An example on the industrial internet and predict software solutions, I have two here. I'll touch on the one on the left, the aircraft engine one. In our aviation business, we design and manufacture and sell aircraft engines. You might not recognize this, but the majority of the flights that you take here in the region and globally, the airplanes run on GE aircraft engines. So these are extremely important technologies, both from an energy efficiency and a security perspective. Very high level, very high-tech products. And we have sensors on these aircraft engines, and these sensors collect operational data on a regular basis as the aircrafts operate. And with our software, we analyze this data for predictive maintenance purposes, operational efficiency purposes, and energy efficiency purposes. And we've calculated the impact of that on a global basis, and the outcome was very striking in that on an annual basis, we achieve $22 billion of savings with our global installed base of aircraft engines, 10 billion of which is fuel savings, and 8 billion of which is around minimizing delays and cancellations, and 4 billion is around preventing unplanned downtime, which means a lot to a commercial airline operator because downtime means money lost for an airline operator. They want to maximize usage of aircraft. And so this is very striking. Yep, and efficiency in numbers, we call this the power of 1%. This is huge, and this is really, really exciting as we look at industrial internet and technology solutions within the GE portfolio. Again, across various industries, we've calculated the impact that we're making with the 1% improvement that we make, and you see the numbers here. So just let's pick on aviation to continue with that example. We think we enable $30 billion of savings a year just through operational efficiencies offered through our software here. And lastly, I wanted to take a minute to talk about renewable energy. We think it presents significant benefits for the energy system, particularly reducing the use of fossil fuels. And the equation here is very simple in that once we increase the usage of renewable energy resources, we minimize the consumption of natural resources. So for countries that are resource rich, that means an increased amount of oil and gas reserves that can be exported, so that's direct impact on their country top line or revenues. For countries that are not resource rich, that means less expenditures on foreign sources of fuel. So at the end of the day, that increases economic welfare and competitiveness, and that offers sustainability. So what I would really want you to leave this slide with is kind of what I have on the left-hand side. Renewable energy has a history of being known as an expensive technology. And that has changed, especially when we talk about solar and wind. That has changed tremendously in the past couple of years. And this chart is showing the global average of the levelized cost of energy. So these numbers show you the total capital expenditure, the OPEX, and the fuel cost of having an investment around coal, solar, gas, and wind. And as you can see here, wind and solar are now comparable to the conventional methods of power generation, coal and natural gas. So it's no longer, a dream to actually have renewable energy that is in economically friendly ways. It's very feasible, and we're actually seeing that activity starting to pick up in our region, not just on solar, but on wind as well. And as GE, we're particularly excited to see that. And just to conclude with some numbers here, we expect the wind growth, the annual growth for wind energy to increase about 14–15% over the next few years. And then we would expect the renewable energy share from the lower 2–3% to go up to about 12% by year 2035. So it's looking very bright out there, and we're very excited to be part of that as General Electric company. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pierre.
So, good afternoon. Practically, I have some few remarks regarding the report, which actually completed a really thorough analysis of the situation of energy consumption in the Arab world. Practically, the first thing that comes to our mind is that there are huge variations in terms of energy consumption in different countries of the Arab world. It's clear that while some Arab countries like Qatar, Kuwait, or UAE have one of the highest energy consumption per capita in the world, other countries like Mauritania, Sudan, and like other Libya, for example, have very low energy consumption per capita. It's also clear that there's a huge difference in priorities between or among the Arab countries. Countries like Lebanon, Egypt, UAE have 98–99% of consumers having access to electricity, while others have averages like 30–40%, which is extremely low in today's world. In addition, again, there are differences between oil-producing and non-oil-producing countries, and this affects the priorities of these countries in setting their strategies to implement energy efficiency and renewable energy applications. Again, there's a difference between rich countries and none or poor countries, and this again is a big is a variation which usually affects the future plans of the different countries. But the good thing, or at least the bottom line, the common thing, is that there's a huge need for energy and electricity in the Arab world for the coming 15 to 20 years. Usually we're talking about the 2030 line. So there is a need for additional demand, for additional power plants, for additional transmission lines. There's a huge need for really very big investments in this regard. And this need will definitely create a place for renewable energy automatically, because people do need electricity, they do need energy, and renewable energy is there. And as it was mentioned now, renewable energy, the cost of renewable energy is now very competitive. It's really like we're comparing actually the same price of initial investment. One other thing which it's worth noting is that some countries in the Arab region are moving to nuclear, and nuclear is a game changer. I think few studies, few scenarios have taken nuclear energy into consideration, and it's time to do so. Now, the positive thing, and again, according to the report and according to what we've been following up, during the past few years is that most Arab countries have now very aggressive targets for renewable energy. And we're really talking about aggressive targets. Morocco, we're talking about 43%. Egypt, I think 8,000 megawatts or even 40,000 megawatts, like huge numbers, huge targets. This is extremely encouraging. This is extremely encouraging for people who do care for the environment, who do care for renewable energy. And this will open the door for huge investment, and this will open the door for really big job opportunities. In a study that the ESCWA is working on, between now and 2030, the Arab world will need around 240 billion of renewable energy investments. And the ESCWA is considering the case of what is actually the potential for local manufacturing of these renewable energy equipment. And this could be also an interesting situation, interesting scenario for economists, for decision makers, for politicians in the different Arab countries. Now, what is again clear is that most Arab countries, they do focus on renewable energy because renewable energies are visible. We can see a solar farm, we can see a wind turbine, we can see a CSP, a hydropower plant. Energy efficiency is not visible. We cannot see it, we cannot make it concrete. And this is a bad point for energy efficiency because decision makers, politicians, they cannot communicate with their people, with their citizens in terms of energy efficiency. Although, and again, according to the report, many countries have done really huge efforts in terms of promoting energy efficiency, like adoption of green building codes, adoption of standards, labels for energy efficient appliances. The low-hanging fruits are in energy efficiency, but these are really tackled as they should be. Again, our colleague has mentioned what she called the power of 1%. This is an amazing concept to see how really big benefits could be done thanks to to energy efficiency. I would like to conclude by saying that many Arab countries have submitted their INDC report, which are these binding reports that should be or that are already submitted to the COP21 meeting, hopefully to be done in Paris in December, early December. These INDCs have two parts, one which is the unconditional targets, and the second part is the conditional targets. The unconditional targets are the targets set by the governments, from the government's own money, from public and private investment. And the conditional parts are the ones that depend on international aid and support. Most INDCs from the Arab countries are promising. We do really believe that these will actually lead to a huge game changer in the map of power consumption in the Arab world in the coming 10 years. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. I think we still have a few minutes if we have some questions to the panel on energy efficiency, renewable, or any other energy-related issues. Mike, please.
Thank you, Dr. Abdullah Jalil. Thank you for panelists. I have two comments. First one for Ms. Ebro, regarding to the values you put here concerning the energy efficiency or improving the energy efficiency. You know, to get these figures, we have benchmark to show what is the increasing of this energy efficiency. I mean, what is the base to get these values to move from here to target you put in your slides? The second comments to Mr. Pierre Khoury, it is, you mentioned renewable energy, I feel that is more visible than energy efficiency. And I think it is critical to say that because we have to study case by case. And I can say now energy efficiency is more visible with low price of oil. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So I'll take the first one. I assume you were referring to kind of the quantification, the power of 1%, et cetera. And at a high level, what we do is, we know what kind of value our technology, our new technologies bring, and we have a very good understanding of our customers, how they operate, and the economics of their operations. So by actually comparing the new technologies to a baseline technology that doesn't have the features that we offer in our technologies, we know the fuel consumption levels, and looking at our global fleet of equipment, whether that's a healthcare product or an aircraft engine installed base or a natural gas turbine running globally, we then have a simple calculation around fuel usage, baseline technology versus new technology to calculate the customer savings.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yes. I just mentioned that from the point of view of politicians and decision makers, RE, renewable energy, is more visible. Like, no, from a technical point of view, it's completely right. Energy efficiency is a priority and should be done before renewable energy. So yes, completely I agree.
Thank you. Hamu?
شكرا دكتور عبد الجليل. My question to the two speakers is about the shift to renewable energy. Is about capacities and technologies, and we don't have any in the region. We are not producers of the technologies, and those are expensive. My question is, if you look into the climate agreement, the three implementation mechanisms are about technology transfer as the first one, capacity development as the second one, and finance as a third one. I'm afraid that in terms of this transition to green energy, we will be redoing the cycle of desalination in the water sector. We will be the biggest global consumers, and the technology is not grounded, is not domesticated for 50 years now. And that could be a challenge for the figures that are quite attractive and eloquent, but if we are not equipped with the right capacities to ground and domesticate the technology, our chances are going to be making us another market and not a producer of the technology. Thank you.
So I'll be happy to address it, and I'll give examples from the wind side of renewable energy. So initially, when our region started to adopt wind energy technologies, obviously all of the equipment, all of the technologies coming to the region were all from other countries, Europe, the US, etc. That is actually starting to change from a localization perspective, in that companies, including GE, are now looking at localizing certain components of wind turbines. So when you look at a wind turbine, it looks very simple from outside. There is a very big tower, there are the big blades, and there is the core that we call the nacelle that has the generator and all the electromechanical parts in there. So some countries, along with wind turbine manufacturers, are now looking at localizing blades and localizing towers, because they want jobs, they want to localize production, and they want the technology transfer. So that's happening as we speak in wind technology. And down the line, as volumes increase in the region, it is expected that some of the tougher, more complicated parts would be localized as well in time, such as the generators and the electromechanical components. I think our region is headed in that direction. It's just a matter of volume. Once the volume is there, a lot of global manufacturers would actually be willing to localize turbine manufacturing, or at least localizing certain components of turbines here in the Middle East.
I will also add something about the solar desalination experiment in the Saudi Arabia, which I think you've known about. I think this is an encouraging step to try to domesticate solar desalination in the region, hopefully. Walid.
مرحبا، كورين شلفون من الجامعة اللبنانية، صحافة متخصصة بيئة وصحة. عندي سؤال لأستاذ بيير خوري. حضرتك ذكرت أنه بعض البلدان عم تتبع تصنيع الطاقة النووية وهي تعتبر من الطاقة البديلة، ولكن نحن بنعرف أنه الطاقة النووية إلها كتير رواسب ونفايات نووية، وبالتالي هي كتير شبيهة للنفايات النفطية والمسيئة للبيئة. كيف ممكن نعتبرها أنها تكون بديلة بهالوضع؟
لا، أنا ما قلت الطاقة النووية هي طاقة بديلة، أنا قلت بعض الدول العربية باستراتيجيتها الطاقوية عم تتجه نحو إدخال الطاقة النووية، وإدخال الطاقة النووية خاصة بدول كبيرة ووازنة مثل مصر وأردن والإمارات العربية المتحدة حيكون لها تأثير على تطور الطاقات المتجددة والبديلة كالشمس والرياح والمياه وغيرها. إذا بس أنا كنت عم نبه إنه إدخال الطاقة النووية حيكون لها تأثير، وعم بطلب من الباحثين والجامعيين إنه يصير في دراسات للسيناريوهات المحتملة كيفية تأثير الطاقة النووية على الطاقات المتجددة.
يعني هي ممكن تكون ستيب للأمام كرمال نكون عم نفوت بالطاقة البديلة؟ ممكن تكون يعني عم بتساعدنا تنتطور، لأنه إحنا حسب بعض الدراسات أو بعض القراءات اللي عملناها هي فعلا مضرة، يعني مثل غير طاقات.
لا، أنا عم أقدم واقع، الواقع إنه الدول العربية، بعض الدول العربية عم يدخل طاقات نووية على مزيج الطاقة الموجود بالمنطقة العربية، وعم بقول هيدا الموضوع رح يأثر إما سلبا إما إيجابا على الطاقة المتجددة. ما عندي الجواب على هذا الموضوع، على الباحثين والدراسات إنه توضح مدى تأثير إدخال الطاقة النووية على تطوير الطاقات المتجددة.
نجيب قصدي وليد وبعدين نجيب آخر سؤال عشان الوقت.
Thank you. I have a question on both speakers can reply on. Do you have an idea, or could you elaborate on the cost effectiveness of implementing energy efficiency measures or programs as compared to expanding the capacity of producing that energy? In terms, so to convince a decision maker, you want to say, hey, listen, this is cheaper than, I know in the long term you will return your investment, but I'm talking about the program costs now compared to expanding your capacity in energy production. I know in water it does.
So just to make sure I understand, the cost of actually implementing an energy efficiency program versus making a new investment perhaps on renewable energy, right? I haven't seen any studies like that. We have not looked at it, but I don't think they're comparable in that they need to happen simultaneously, especially given the demand increases in our region with the level of urbanization, industrialization, population growth, etc. I don't think savings generated through energy efficiency would meet that increasing demand. So you still need to go ahead and invest in new technologies. Where renewable energy comes into play is what percentage of those new investments are conventional versus renewable, and that's where renewable energy becomes critical. So I think the new investments or the need for new investments will need to be there, will continue to be there to just keep up with the increasing demand in our region.
And I think also one major element of economics of energy production is the domestic prices of fossil fuel. It's a critical factor in determining the economics of energy efficiency and renewable energy. Mike, please. Mike.
I can convince a decision maker if he invests in a program for reducing the leakage in the network, it will be less expensive than increasing the capacity of the desalination plant. This is what I say. This is very convincing argument. Do we have the same thing in the energy?
Yeah, definitely it depends on the type of technology in terms of energy efficiency. I'll give you some examples. If we're talking about LED lighting, definitely it's extremely attractive. We're talking about other types like cogeneration or trigeneration, it becomes even more complicated. But to give you a rule of thumb, according to the IEA, the International Energy Agency, they say that every $1 that we invest in energy efficiency saves us $2 of investments in constructing new power plants. That, again, it depends on the technology, but most projects that are under implementation now in Lebanon, if you want to talk about, let's say, payback periods, it can be it goes from 2 months with LED lighting to 3 to 4 years for other energy efficiency applications.
And just to expand on that, I'll give you an example again from lighting. So in our portfolio, we have several different types of LED technologies, lighting technologies. And in one of the countries in our region, we did a pilot. We actually went to a street that had some old lighting technology, and we implemented our LED technologies, and we achieved an efficiency rate of close to 80%. That's purely because the technology they had on that street was very, very old. So if that was slightly newer technology, the energy efficiency saving would be maybe in the 50s, right? So that's, I guess, what you mean by saying what kind of, it depends on what kind of technology there is.
If you allow me, this is just one last sentence. This is a report of all the loans that were implemented in Lebanon as part of the Central Bank of Lebanon financing mechanism. I'll give you an example. I think it's about 120 projects implemented all over the country. The amount of loans is $6.8 million. The annual savings are $4.4 million. So the payback is something like 1.5 years. Yeah. Like 100